because you test something at various causes and you record the effects. You have to assume that in the process of science. You can't prove it. Therefore, it's like, for example, another thing that you have to assume in science is you have to assume patterns. So, for example, I'll assume a pattern of an orbit. I'll assume patterns within gravitational force. I will then develop a theory of gravity and then apply it and assume the pattern will exist and will hold. Science is not the be-all and the end. Science and the philosophy of science was built upon certain assumptions. One is patterns, one is also causality, which can't therefore be proven. But you can't use it to self-prove it. It becomes a circular argument. The other point is this: why did I come to the existence of an unlimited, independent creator? Well, to be honest, that's not a problem in science either. There's many things which science have assumed to be unlimited. So, for example, energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but transformed from one form to another. So science is saying effectively that energy is eternal. Now what we're saying is that if something is eternal, it must be eternal in all its attributes, not just one of its attributes. So if it's limited, which we know energy is, it's limited by its definition, which is E equals mc squared. When we define something, we limit it. Therefore, we understand that it's limited. We also know that energy exists within forms. Therefore, we also find that science talks about other things which are unlimited or infinite. They talk about the quantum singularity being something that has always existed because it existed outside of time. Again, what we would say is that if you've got a quantum singularity, it has to be unlimited in all its aspects. That's why we said it can't be a mechanical force. If it's a mechanical force, then you wouldn't have a beginning to creation. Creation would always exist. Universe would always exist. Even science says the universe has only started to exist about 17 or 16 billion years ago. So we know that science accepts infinity. Science accepts something that's eternal. What we're saying is, if we're going to accept something which is eternal, it must be rationally eternal. It means eternal in all its attributes, not independent in some and limited in others.
I did want to ask.
Right, okay. If you want to think, and then we'll take a few questions from the floor.
I don't really understand a huge amount of the science stuff, but my question would be, I have to say, I'm not a scientist myself, I'm a politics student, but I would have to ask, if these singular points can be infinite, and I have read these are the points at the centre of black holes, but what makes an omnipotent, involved God involved? Why is there the difference? Why is there the big leap from one singular point that's infinite to a God that's omnipotent, that's involved, that cares, that creates us, that is involved in our lives, that has something to do with us? Now I'm trying to not bring it down to actual religion, just sticking with God, but there are two very distinct types of God. There's the pagan sort of natural idea of God and the Gaia theory, which is the energy. Energy never dies. Energy is eternal. We are all part of it, we are all linked into it. It's not conscious, it keeps things running, but it doesn't act. But then there's the omnipotent God, the God that is involved, the God that has the rules, the God that is followed in the major religions. And there is a very distinct difference, because whilst I'm an atheist, I can get my head around the idea of a science God that is the energy, that is the Gaia theory, that can go on, but it's not an involved conscious being. It's not even a being as such. It is just energy, it is mass. But the word God is applied for something that isn't understood. I would say that scientists will find a way of explaining this. I can see that logically. I don't necessarily believe in it, but I can see that that's a logical possibility. But the idea of an omnipotent God that cares about our tiny little lives, if you think about the expanse of history so far, we are barely an eye blink. Our lives, there are 7 billion people on this planet right now. There's many, many people in this room. And I find it very hard to believe that there is something out there that does care, that does create us, that does make us exactly who we are and exactly what we are. Because our time here is so short. There are so many of us. And then the question goes to, what about all the other organisms on life? There are millions, there are billions of germs, bunnies, tigers, lions, trees, everything.
Okay,
Yeah. I've got a few questions for the Sharif, if I may.
Yeah.
creator is and who is creating us, that seems a bit problematic to me. And leading on from that, I'd like to ask, is there anything that anyone can say about God with certainty?
Yeah. There's various different ways of looking at the proofs for the existence of God, which starts off by looking and sensing upon the reality. I gave one proof, which was of causality, the chain of events, and I said the chain of events cannot be a cycle, that's impossible. It cannot be a chain that goes on forever, that's impossible. So the chain of events must have an initiation point. The initiator, this creator, must be unlimited. Yeah. So this argument of I can't understand how this creator would care for an individual, well, you're limited, that's why you don't understand that. Whereas we're talking about an unlimited creator with unlimited attributes, that's why it's not a problem for the creator to know every single person and how they think. So that's one. So that chain of events and that unlimited argument is one argument. The other argument is called occasionalism. And occasionalism says that actually, when you break everything down, all events cannot exist except if they're caused by a creator. Yeah. Now let's take the science about this. And forgive me if I go into too much science. I really do apologize. I do that sometimes. You go into, if I take this glass, this cup, yeah, then I can hold it. And if I go and I get a microscope and I look at this cup and I know it's made of molecules, and I even go further and I look at what the molecules made up and I see they're made up of an atom. And if I go even further, then I see they're made up of particles. Now science says, which is known as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, that I can't know exactly what the position is of every particle in the cup or its speed. I can't know it. Not that I have limitations in my understanding of science, but it's impossible. There's no natural cause to explain the position and the speed of every single particle. No natural cause. It's not that it doesn't have, it's not there. If there wasn't a position or a speed of particles, I wouldn't be able to hold it. So if there's no natural cause, then what is the cause? If it's not naturalistic, it becomes unnatural, which means it's a created, i.e. it's outside of material. What does that mean? It means for every event, even for me to hold this cup, yeah, I recognize that the Creator has given the capacity for this. So it means now that we don't have this distant Creator from 17 billion years ago, but rather we have a Creator that allows us to do things, because it's not molecules just in this cup, yeah, which are determined outside of the matter and outside of the universe, but it's the atoms and it's the quantum level particles of every single particle within the universe. Yeah, and this is, if we want to look into further detail, look at Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and look at occasionalism and the philosophy that was developed by great, very prominent scholars of the past. One of them was known as Imam Ghazali.
Sorry, I've got a quick rebuttal to that. You said a creator of unlimited attributes. Unlimited attributes is, again, infinite. But you said infinite was impossible. Sorry, that's my question there. I'd like to...
No, it's a good question. I think what I specifically said was that an infinite series of events, an infinite regression, is impossible. That's what I meant. When we talk about infinity, which is a good discussion to ask, we sometimes think infinity means an infinite amount of limited things. Yeah? So when we talk about the universe, we say, is the universe limited or is it infinite? We say the universe is infinite because it's an infinite amount of limited things, i.e. infinite number of stars, of planets, of gas, of dust, etc. That type of infinity is impossible because you can't break down infinity into limited parts. Yeah?